a boom. Apologies. We're starting a little late today. It's one of those things where we were just about to start, and then every one of us had some kind of issue crop up, whether it's
Yeah,
laptop chargers deciding to malfunction, or it's the internet keeps cutting out, or it's having to do really stressful paperwork
family
last
stuff.
minute, or if
It's
it's like
all
if your kid accidentally hurts themselves, like 15 minutes before, it's like many things happen, and and as I like to say, the show must go on. So here we are, getting the show to keep going on. And
it. I appreciate the attempt at sharing blame, but a lot of it's my fault. I was home, 15 minutes ago, but I had to parent because kids almost let me run over my dog.
for sure,
So,
for sure.
uh, yeah, it's, and I'll own up to it. I'm a long-winded parent.
hmm
Hey, look,
There's
there's
two
two
carries.
carries.
Is that?
We got two carries.
Oh.
I mean, this is pretty incredible. You can't get much better than this.
You know what? Since we don't have Drew, let's just have another carry.
We're gonna keep it. We're
We're
gonna
gonna
let it fly. All right, let's get
we're gonna
started.
keep
Let's
it.
stop all the tomfoolery, Kyle. You're the one who's supposed to keep us grounded, man.
Look, man, it's just one of those days where we're just rolling with it, and things are just getting more hilarious as we go on.
Oh.
All right. So, I guess we don't really have any special announcements, so I'm just going to go ahead and roll those credits like I love to do. Roll them credits. Go. All right. It's the new intro, but I realized that we actually have an older version of the audio file on there, and that I'd like to fix at some point, but probably for the next episode. Probably for the next episode. So,
Yeah.
anyways, let's go ahead and transition into what we like to call group therapy. This is a chance for not only to give the audience somewhat of a recap of what happened in the last session, but to also check in with the individual characters, the ones we have right here, and see how they have felt and how they're internalizing the recent events and how they might feel going forward into whatever the hell's going to happen in this session. Who wants to start?
I'm gonna go because Asa's feeling a little overwhelmed. A little bit like he's got a lot going on. Oh wait, this is for characters, not for players. Shit. Okay.
It's a therapy session, Asa. Just let it all out on the table.
Right. You asked me how I feel about that. Anywho, I mean, Eridu just watched one of his longest friends die. I won't even didn't watch her die, but he found her body, like she's dead. Uh, you know, Josh, when he was playing, made a really good point about Eridu, how he likes to take all this weight on his shoulders. And actually, I think it was Alton saying that, bearing all this responsibility, the self responsibility, and Theala's death is just another thing that he's got that he's gonna kind of feels a little bit responsible for. But I think he's in a mental state of his sense of responsibility is sort of growing to this larger sense of bringing in everyone responsible for the situation and trying to make them all hold up their level of accountability. He's a little bit frustrated with Emily right now. He's very mad with Garth and Vitrell, and seems interested in striking a deal with a dangerous Fey Lord in order to get some revenge. We all know how well pacts with Fey beings can go, especially when their whole motivation is to consume those they make pacts with. So, this will be great. It'll be good.
Mm-hmm. Was it episode 6 where in which Tix was introduced? Was that it?
Yes, that is
Yeah,
when
it was Drew's. It was Drew's episode right after Josh's episode.
Correct.
I think that was it. Yeah. So Tix, who knows if that dude is gonna come back into the situation? But Eridu has definitely invoked his name
Yeah, man.
in a
You go
big
poking
way.
a bear.
Yeah, definitely. All right. How is Carrie feeling about Ellie?
Um, so Ellie is in a bit of a strange place, I think. She is kind of quietly excited that she gets to go on this adventure with basically her heroes. And she's heard that Aigner is in trouble, which she feels compelled to help with for some reason. But she's also still kind of dealing with the death of like her best friend and her mentor. And then with the protests that we just had, she's happy with like the success of her inventions, but it was brutal, and she's not really one for that kind of brutality, really. But she's doing all right, I think.
Excellent. Yeah. So just wanted to run those like numbers again. The riot that happened in the square where Akram died, the riot of last session, was an incredibly brutal experience, as Carrie described. There was a huge
Yeah.
battle, something like I don't know.
It was like 20 people.
Yeah, it was like well on the side of all the guards that were coming to mess you up.
That's even more than that.
There was like 20, 30, like yeah, like just about 40 casualties on the side of the guards that came to mess you up. And then the common people out of the like 60 that were gathered there that got wrapped up in this whole thing, 20 of them got killed. So the whole square is just was littered with like over 50 corpses, and it was insane in the membrane. Insane. And the party teleported out of that whole situation. They all gathered in the center where there was this tree planted in this huge stone basin, huge planter. They gathered next to the tree, and then Emily used this scroll that she had gotten from a powerful wizard named Finnegan, and she used that to teleport all of the party members and the tree into this beautiful garden that is adjacent to the Temple of Anesti, where their hideout is. And the party talked for a little bit in the garden, and a mysterious figure who came up in the form of a rat. He transformed into an ancient, wizened old elf, and he told them some mysterious stuff, namely that he knew where Agner Bosch was, and that Agner is about to do something incredibly stupid, which, is, to be fair, is something that a lot of people say about Agner Bosch. He's about to do something very stupid. So, that's pretty much where we start. We're in the garden outside of the Temple of Nesti. Your characters have had a bit of time to relax. I mentioned before that the members of the Tranquility have left by this point, presumably to go meet up with their crew and discuss what is going to be the best option for them moving forward. Obviously, they may have to leave Twin Harbor for a while to lay low. It's just the obvious thing that you guys think of. Emily comes up to you all as you after you've had some time to relax, and she tells you all, I think now would be a good time to have a ceremony for Theala. I would like to put her to rest, and then we can talk about what happens next.
Thank you, Emily. I think that is in great taste. And I appreciate it.
She seems to get a little choked up and doesn't have a good response, and then says, Laven here has graciously offered to help with the ceremony. Shall we?
Yes. I think we shall.
Very well.
Laven, thank you for offering your services.
It's the least I can do. My order has always had a great reverence for the dead. They must be shown proper respect. It is the way of this world.
Very well.
So your party gathers. Halifax also was part of that whole address, and Halifax only nods gravely. He goes to where he so he had brought Theala's body into the temple and laid Theala's body on the altar to presumably hang out with Anesti for a little while before she is finally put to rest. Halifax goes back into the temple and gently grabs Theala's body, cradling the head to his shoulder, and walks very slowly down the steps of the temple to the garden. In that amount of time, Laven has stood in the center. So I mentioned that the tree that was planted in Akram's memory came with you guys, with the huge stone basin and all. It was currently just awkwardly in the corner of the garden, kind of tipping over on its side, kind of like this. While Halifax was getting Theala's body, Laven has been moving his hands in these wide, sweeping patterns and muttering elvish words under his breath, and been working his druidic magics. And those who are watching him really start to see how he has this mastery over shaping the earth itself. His wide arm movements, they start to look like a painter's brush slowly moving across a canvas, and the earth turns itself around in response to his movements. The basin in which the tree sits, he looks at it, and with a sharp slashing motion, the basin splits across the middle and falls into two halves. And then he takes the dirt around the tree and just pulls it out of the stone basin and the dirt crawls with the tree still there. It crawls to the center of the clearing in the garden. And with this motion, he takes the whole dirt surrounding the roots of the tree and it sinks into the earth. And the roots reach downward and grip into the earth and root itself into this central location. Halifax brings Theala's body over and places it in front of the newly planted tree. And then Leovan, with some more movements of his hands, takes out these large cubes of earth straight out of the ground in front of the tree and place it beside, creating a grave, an open grave. Emily looks around to you all and says, "Would anyone like to say anything?"
Eridu will step forward and take a fistful of the dirt by the grave and sprinkle it over Theala. Of the people here, she has known me the longest. I have fought along her side on many occasions. Sometimes for what is right. Sometimes for what is deplorable. But always she was dependable. Always she was intelligent. And always she called into question whether or not her orders were right, were done for the sake of the betterment of any. She would have loved to die in battle. And though I do not know what happened up there, I can only assume that is exactly what happened. It was exactly how she fell. And she will be missed, and her strength will be a hard thing to go on without. But she will also be a beacon for all of us. A torch in these dark times to lead us through to the end. A martyr for a cause that she herself must have believed in, or she would not have been here. And then, looking at Halifax, Eridu he'll kind of blush a little. And his words kind of faltering, feeling a little bit weak at the end. Despite his attempts at giving long-winded speeches, a practice he's had over the last several years we've been together, he seems to have no more words. And he steps aside, giving the floor to whoever would like to step forward next.
Halifax definitely takes your cue, and he steps forward, and he clears his throat. Theala, as I said before, we did not have our time. It may have seemed, excuse me, it may have seemed that we did. But we did not yet have our time. I can only hope that in some afterlife that will happen. And he just becomes consumed with emotion and openly weeps. Sorry, I'm getting bombarded with some message stuff. He looks over at anyone else who is trying to talk.
Ellie steps up, takes a handful of the dirt like Eridu did, and just quietly says, it's a sadness to lose such a great hero. But her legend will live on, and drops it and then steps back quietly.
All right. Emily steps forward, and you can already see a trail of a tear that has crept down her face. And she says, I knew Fiala for only a short time. I will admit, in that time we certainly had our differences. But ultimately, I respected her strength, and I respected her resolve. She was a soldier, and she always fought for what she thought was right. That's more than I can say for many people in this world. She also developed a very close relationship with the Nesty. I could always see that in her. So rest easy, Fiala Oloro. May a Nesty guide your soul. Leoden now steps forward, and with more movements, graceful, wide, sweeping movements of his hands, the earth around Fiala, or the earth under Fiala, it starts to move and buckle and then slowly tilt down toward the open grave, and her body is gently, slowly carried down this slope until it cradles her and rests her in the bottom. And as this process happens, Leoden starts speaking in Elvish. If anyone understands Elvish other than Eridu, they will understand the prayer that he is saying. Bones of this world, hear my prayer. We ask that you receive this body and make it one with you again. Fiala's soul has moved on to the other side, so take her bones and use them to make life anew. He does this kind of motion, bringing his hands into the center, and the blocks of earth that were next to the grave, they start to melt in a way. From being big blocks of earth, they just melt into the loose dirt, and it flows and fills up the grave. And then, with a sweep of his hand, he wipes the entire top of it clean, so that it's just a smooth, perfectly flat piece of earth. And then he goes over to where the broken halves of the basin are, and with a swoop of his hand, he grabs a huge hunk of stone, and it just pops off. Even though he's looks so weak and frail, he just pops off a huge chunk of this stone and brings it over, shaping it with his hands until it's in the shape of a tombstone. With one finger, he stands in front of you all and traces on the surface of the stone, writing letters. He places the tombstone firmly at the top of the grave, And I have a little graphic for you all to show what it says on Theala's tombstone. Here lies Major Theala Grimfire Aloro. She was a soldier. She was devoted to Anesti. She was our friend. Can you guys see that? Okay.
Yeah, dog, that's super sweet. I love
Cool.
it.
Hell yeah. Alright. Boom. And with that, the ceremony is pretty much concluded. Emily bows her head in respect and places the palm of her hand on the soft earth and then walks away, presumably to go get a cup of tea to calm her nerves or something.
Drew's gonna be so mad he missed this.
Life
Man.
happens, dude. Life
know,
will
man.
happen.
That was good. That was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm taking a step back from in game for a minute just because, like, it's pretty emotional to me, dude.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I have a thing for the funerals. I did Akram's funeral. Now I'm doing Theala's funeral. I'm gonna
Man,
do
yeah.
Eridu's funeral next. It'll be great.
All I did was a wedding. I did Agner's wedding. I did Jeff and Amanda's wedding.
Yeah. Well, that's what you do. That's just what you do.
True that.
So, with that whole thing, your characters are pretty much free to go into the hideout, find your rooms, find a room, get some rest. Laven had told you that he would take you to Agner, and he might mention another little detail as far as if you would like me to take you to Agner, it would be best for us to leave with the cloak of night.
All right.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, Halifax has a thing he wants to do, and Agner will be instrumental in that. So we will wait for Halifax to be ready, and then we will go. If this works for you.
Halifax looks at you all, and he is sunk to his knees in front of Theala's tombstone, and he's got a hand on the tombstone, and he just looks back at you all, choking up, and he says, "Please, leave me be. For a while, at least." So I assume that
Very
you
well.
guys leave him alone.
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so your characters go into the hideout, and you guys can just take a long rest. And at some point, Halifax will come back. You'll hear him stumble down the steps, and may hear some muffled noises as he's talking to himself, or maybe still sobbing. It's entirely believable. But he will eventually get to bed early enough to get a long rest with you guys. And you wake up in the middle of the night. It might be, it's past midnight, it's 12:30, maybe even 1 o'clock in the morning. You wake up kind of well rested, but also feeling a little off, having this whole like nocturnal situation going on right now.
I think Eridu would have spent that time meditating on ticks and things of the Feywild. So he wasn't taking an actual sleep, but doing his elven meditation nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to have been working on something
Okay.
something small.
Something small, sure.
That yeah, whenever we meet back up, I'll explain.
Okay. Yeah, you
Do
guys
that.
can definitely meet up. You'll find maybe you guys are all drawn to the kitchen for some reason, like you're smelling some kind of delicious spicy smell on the air. And it brings you to the kitchen where you find both Leovan and Halifax. And Halifax is sitting at the table, and he has got a mug that is steaming with this black liquid. You assume that it's a very strong cup of coffee that Leovin's prepared for him to get him up and at him, as it were. And Leovin is cooking some little, like, I don't know, it looks like a steamed veggie kind of thing with all sorts of little spices in there. And looks at you all, and he's got a comical look about him because he's just like the decrepit old looking like wise elf, you know? But since he's in the kitchen, he's found Emily's apron that Emily has, and he's wearing the apron, and yeah, he looks very silly, but he doesn't mind at all, and he offers to you, "This will give you strength."
Oh, thank
Eridu
you.
will manage to make himself a cup of strong tea, and when offered food, will take it, go to sleep, and sit and kind of pick through bits of the food, but mostly just be in his own mental world. He doesn't even touch the cup of tea that he made.
So I'd like to go and sit down.
Also, my
What?
What?
What? Who's gonna
my
talk?
internet's being spotty.
Oh, okay. All right. We'll deal with it.
Yeah, so Ellie will go and sit by Eridu, and I mean, I'm going to presume Halifax is nearby. And yeah, I know we haven't really known each other very long, but I wanted to do something for you guys that might help with the passing of your friend a little bit. And she pulls out she'll pull out a cloth that's like folded over and then unfolds it, and there are 3 strips of like black fabric, and stitched into them are like gold and red flame patterns going up. And she holds them out, and then as she does, pulls up her own sleeve and shows 2 black bands around her bicep. I don't know, arm parts.
It's right there.
Yeah. And one is stitched with like a small, almost like cog pattern, and the other is stitched with something that it looks like just symbols, but it's something in thieves' cant. And she explains that I made these when my mentor, and she points to the one with cogs, and my best friend passed, and points to the one with thieves' cant on it. It's just something that I can carry with me always to remember them with, and I made one for you, for your friend. And she kind of holds it out, and if you sort of like run your fingers along where the flames are, there's a slight warmth that comes through, not like too noticeable, but it looks like she's woven some sort of magic into it. Oh.
We got 2 aces now.
Yeah.
We had 2 carries, now we have 2 aces.
There we go. Yeah, she puts them out onto the table in front of
I dropped the computer because the internet kept screwing up.
Oh, okay.
So
So
I don't know what's going on there.
we'll figure it out. So how many bands did Ellie make?
So there are 3 there. So, well, presumably one for obviously Eridu and Halifax, and she's essentially made the other one for Aigner, but
Mm.
he's not here right
Mm-hmm. He'll appreciate it when if and when he gets it. So Halifax will. He looks like he was just super stone faced, and then he's got his coffee mug right in front of him. That's why I'm doing this. And then as you continue to talk, his stony face just softens and softens, and with a shaky hand, he reaches out and just takes 2 fingers and caresses the flame to verify that it does the warm thing, and then he grabs it and just says, "Ellie, this is incredibly kind of you. Incredibly kind. I'm touched, truly."
now. Well, I know how hard it is to lose someone you care about, and it's important to remember them.
I greatly, greatly appreciate this. And with that, he hitches up the sleeve of his robe to get it as close to his skin as he can, and he just wraps it on his left bicep and hides it under the sleeve and says, "She will always be with me. With us, but yes, through this magical gift you have given, she'll be very close to our hearts."
Yes, your gift is very gracious. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Why do you treat us with such kindness when you've never even met the other?
Well, not met her, but I've heard many stories. I know of her.
Stories she undoubtedly would have loved to have passed on and elaborated upon.
Yes. Well, perhaps you could help in the retelling of some of her stories yourselves.
Maybe. Once our story is complete and there is no more standing in the way of us and living normal lives, perhaps it'll be time to sit down and recast the stories of our friendships. Until that day, though, I'm afraid there is just too much pain in this world for us to rest. It's a big burden we carry, being part of this revolution.
Indeed.
So, at that moment, Emily walks in, and she just looks bleary and groggy-eyed, and Halifax by this point has just completely set aside and ignored his cup of coffee, and Emily just comes by and just grabs that and just immediately starts drinking it down. I thought you all would have left already. I'm glad I caught you.
We were about to make our exit. Emily, what can we do for you?
I just wanted to say that when you find Aigner, if you can find any way to do this, I just would really appreciate if you could send me a message and give me some kind of update. Let me know how he is. let me know what kind of time estimate that you have for coming back. Because I understand the importance of this, and we really need him. But to a greater extent, I need all of you. If we're going to capitalize on this opportunity that we have before us, we've built some incredible momentum. Like I told you before, we have the people of the city on our side, and I'm going to do what I can to keep them on our side and to make sure that they don't succumb to the lies and threats of Garth and Vitrell. But yes, if we're going to capitalize on this, if we're going to make real progress in this city, I need you back here as quickly as you can. Make it back here. So, yes, that's essentially it. If you can try and keep me informed in any way possible.
Can I? Oh, don't know, my sheet's gone. Pull out a sending stone.
Yes, you can.
And I'll pass it to Emily and say, this should be able to keep us in contact wherever we are. So if you need us or we need to tell you something, you just speak into the stone.
Ellie, this is incredible.
Well, something I threw together.
Ellie, your gifts.
Oh, you.
Your gifts of ingenuity never cease to amaze me.
Just kind of shrugs and blushes and looks away a little bit. It's nothing.
Thank you. I really appreciate this, and I promise I won't use it too much to bother you. Stay focused on your mission, and I will do my part.
Emily, may I have a word in private, please?
Of course.
So once we're, not around anybody else, when we return, we plan to assault other bases of operation for Orran Vitrell's men, potentially whatever training facilities they have in place, forts, whatever they have. We're going to try to bring enough confusion and take out enough of their information gathering capabilities as possible. But I think it's time we start looking at a larger picture. We need to get at Vitrell and Garth directly. And I get that that won't be easy. But I think between you and I, we know who the head of the snake is, and we know who the body is. I think that if we find a way to eliminate Vitrell, we could lure Garth into an open and vulnerable position.
You're absolutely right about that. Believe me, I've entertained thoughts of eliminating Vitrell before. It would not be easy. Vitrell is constantly surrounded by his entourage and his honor guard.
There were people who were able to make it into the city and assassinate a very predominant figure. Those people have got to still be out there somewhere. And utilizing them to do this task for us might take the entire focus off of the revolution.
Yes. You are right. And she looks around because you guys did definitely step into another room, but she just wants to make sure that there's no, people listening in or whatever. And she
Mhm.
says, I have some reservations against painting an even larger target on the backs of the dwarves. Things have, the city has not been kind to them. But at the same time, we need to do what we need to do. I agree that we can only get Garth if we bring him out into the open. That's the only way. He is too good at working in the shadows. We cannot engage him in the shadows.
Agreed. Also be on guard. You have put Vitrell and Garth out in the open publicly with their whole sinister aspects. I don't know how to say this. They're going to find a way to spin this, to turn it around on us. You know that.
They always will. They always will. But I'm relying on the survivors of the battle at Revolutionary Square. I'm relying on them to gather their loved ones and let them know the truth. They heard it firsthand. They heard Vitrell's words. There's no mistaking that weaselly voice.
Right.
I'm relying on them to hold on to that truth and spread that truth and resist the lies that Vitrell will spout the very next day, tomorrow. He's going to start trying to spin it all.
Alright, as long as you're aware and have a contingency and plan for that. We're going to lay low for a while and bring Agner back.
I'm glad. I feel that we need him more than ever.
Yes, I agree. So that's all I gotta say.
Go with grace. And then she takes the cup of coffee and walks off to her quarters.
Alright.
As you walk back in, Leovan has dumped the rest of the veggie food on Hilofax's plate, and Hilofax just is slowly munching through it with an expressionless look on his face. And Leovan curls his hands just so and says, "Are you all just about ready?"
Eridu will take his tray and his tea and dispose of the contents and put them aside for washing and check his person, make sure he has his staff, things that he might need for a long journey, things that he probably would have brought with him down here, assuming they're ready to leave soon, and I'm ready to go. Billy?
Yeah, I think so. One second. And then she, I don't really know how Ein technically works. I guess it's not actually sentient, is it? I think?
I don't think so. No.
No. So she probably has a control for it.
Yeah, definitely.
Really.
And it.
So she kind of I guess presses some buttons on something. And then you'd hear a plodding coming down the corridor, and then this giant metal owlbear walks into the room, and you notice as you look at it that it has little white socks on its feet. They've got little frills around the edges. And she goes over and sort of pats it on the head as if it was just an actual owlbear. Yeah, I think we're ready to go.
Leovan looks at the owlbear in the dainty white socks with a bemused smile, and he just says, Lovely. Simply.
Well, I didn't want to ruin Emily's floor.
It's a good look. I suppose I shall give you a bit of an outline of what we will be doing. Egner is far to the north, deep within dwarven territory. We must stealthily get outside of the city. We're actually going to the river. I shall lead us through the sewers, where we can avoid detection from the guards that are swarming above. We will reach the docks, where we must acquire a vessel that will take us upstream. There's a very special place that we will find traveling upstream, and it is there that I will be able to take us even further into dwarven territory, where we will find Agner and hopefully reach him quickly enough to stop him from the very stupid thing that he might do.
Do we know what is he doing?
It's a bit of a long story. I am happy to fill you in once we're on our way. Time is somewhat of the essence.
Okay.
Very well.
Very well. We shall be off. And Laven casts a look to Halifax, who has, while Laven was talking, he was, eating more and more of the food. And as he finishes his last bit of the food, he gets up and puts the dish in the sink, lets out a little burp, and then he looks the food has perked him up a lot. And he casts you all a glare and says, "Yes, we shall be off." And you guys march right on out of there with all of your stuff, all well rested and long rested. And how are we doing on time here? Yeah, we can do a little bit more before we take our break. So Laven leads you up and out of the hideout, and you guys walk down the street for only a short distance before he hangs a left and takes you into a dark alleyway. And he seems to know this whole city like the back of his hand. And as soon as you guys duck into the dark alley, he knows even more. He's even more confident in where he's going. He almost looks like a sneaky little rat the way that he's walking and prowling along the alley. He takes you through some confusing little turns, and you even go down this one alley where there's all these lines of clothes that are hanging out, and you have to duck under the clothes. You get into this one alley where there is just slick mud coating the cobblestones everywhere, and you have to slow down to make sure you don't slip and hit your head on anything. And then finally, he takes you to what is becoming a familiar sight since you're ducking into the sewers so much these days. You find an open culvert that will lead you into the whole sewer system. And maybe just just to be comfortable at this point, Leovan does indeed use his wild shape to turn himself into a rat. And he squeaks his way in front of you, making sure you guys don't lose him in the gloom and the darkness. And he keeps squeaking and leads you through the sewer system. And it's not long before you guys start to get into some familiar territory. And by familiar, I'm really referring to Eridu, who has had the most history with this whole area. But you are reaching the Under Circle's old territory that you guys have spent an amount of time in. Before you know it, you're walking through the chamber in which Tix was summoned into this plane. The rubbish heap is still in the corner, still a gross, disgusting rubbish heap. The smell hits your nose like a sledgehammer. And it's at this point that Leovan turns out of his rat form, turns back into his elven form, and breathes deep the dank, disgusting smell of the surroundings.
Why are we here?
To take a moment to rest, to breathe the fresh, clean air, and to give our respects to the ones who have died down here.
You are a very strange fellow, you know that.
I've been called worse things in my life. It's been a long, long life. I've been called many terrible things in that time. Leovan, let me check my notes real quick. Leovan, mysteriously, without another word, walks over into an adjacent chamber. And when you took Halifax down here during last session, I believe it was, this is a chamber that you guys really had like no reason to go into. You know, it's adjacent to this chamber, but with the path you guys were going, you just like didn't even go over here at all. So he takes you down this little way into this adjacent chamber, and as your eyes adjust a little more to the light, you realize that this whole like wide chamber, something curious has happened, where the whole stone floor has been completely like ripped apart and replaced with moist, dank dirt. You know, it's like just all just.
Like recently.
Yeah. I mean, like, definitely, like, you guys went in this chamber, like, if we're gonna wind the clock back to, you know, I think maybe it was in Blood Money or episode 6 or something. Episode 6 or 7, like, the last time that you guys were, like, hanging out down here, this chamber was not like this. So,
Right.
yeah, at this point, like, so you definitely register, like, oh, this is new. And yeah, it's like the whole center part, from the center, it's just been, all the stone has just been eliminated. Or you see chunks kind of sticking up a little bit. It's like it's all been tilled and mulched, and just the earth has been brought up. And Leovan stands in front of this huge dirt pit, and he starts waving his hands again in these flowy motions, and he spends a bit of time tilling the earth, molding it. He does little violent motions like this, and he breaks bits of stone, and tries to widen the dirt pit even a little more.
Okay. If there's a moment where he's not working or when we're in transit, I'll ask him, are the druids still active down here, or is this all you?
This, and then he points backward to the dirt pit. This is all me. As far as the other druids, I have often hoped that they would come back. Maybe one day they will.
They seem to have found a place for themselves. Why would they need to return here?
This has been our home.
Yes, but
It always will be that.
when things go terribly, when you're ostracized or have no reason to remain, isn't it better to just find a new home? Better to move on than to cling to what you've already lost?
There is something about this place that no other place can have.
And does this tie into us finding Egner, or are we just on a side path for you? Sorry.
This area, I must admit, it was on the way, and I wanted to do a bit of work while we take a breather.
Hmm.
But we can, and should, move on.
Yes, I feel rested enough. I would be ready to go.
Very well. And he starts to lead you guys away from the dirt-filled chamber, and he takes you guys down this other tunnel. And he, as you walk, he looks sideways at Eridu, and he says something akin to, I heard your call to Tix, by the way.
Yes, you mentioned this before.
Oh, yeah, I did have him mention that. Yeah, my bad.
Yeah. It's all good, though.
So he'll just mention it again that he mentioned that
Mentioned that he's mentioning what he's mentioning.
No, actually, let me rephrase it in this way, where he says, what could Tix offer you that you're in need of?
It is complex and needing of revision. But I must find a way of striking at the heart of what I believe to be a true threat. And I think that Tix can help me with this.
A bargain with Tix is no thing you should take on lightly.
Yes, I have met him. Whatever fey things go by. I have no intention of letting a bargain with him, whatever fey things go by, wrap me into having myself consumed by his insatiable, that's right. I was like, that's not right. I know the word. Let me think. Insatiable desires.
Insatiable.
But I know someone who seems to have just as much gluttony as Tix. I think the two of them might provide for good company for each other.
He laughs dryly and says, the whims of Fey Lords are a fickle thing. Are fickle things. We shall press on.
Alright.
And he just takes you guys further and further and further into that whole situation. And after several turns through the gross, disgusting pipes of the sewers, you find yourselves popping out of a pipe that is feeding out directly into the river. And as you take your heads and come out from under the pipe and take a look at what's going on, you see that above you there are the boards that make up part of the dock And I can't remember if you guys are on the eastern or western side, but it's on one of the sides. You know, you got the two harbors of Twin Harbor. You are under the dock, and there, yeah, there is like some rocky kind of mucky stuff that you could walk on, you know, to get further down there, and you could go scope and see what kind of ships are around, because as Laven mentioned, you will need to commandeer a vessel to get upstream. And I
Okay.
think, yeah, and I think maybe at that, I'll let you guys think about something to think about something clever to do to take care of that over the break, and we'll take the break just a couple minutes early this
Okay.
time. So, yeah, we'll be right back in about 10 to 15 minutes. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with our technical difficulties that we've been dealing with today. It's just one of those days, you know. We'll see you in 10 to 15. I'm hoping that maybe Drew can pop in at some point, but you know,
Oh, that'd be incredible.
that would be super cool, because I don't think I do Hilofax's voice as well as Drew does Hilofax's voice. That's the truth. So, yeah, we'll see if we see him. And we'll see you in 10 to 15. Thank you for watching.